The living organism characteristics and habitat. Paheli and Bojo went on the vacations to many places of interest. One such trip took them to the river Ganga in Rishikesh. They climbed the mountains of the Himalayas where it was very cold. They saw many kinds of trees on these mountain, oak, pines, and devdar, very different from the ones near their home on the plains. In yet another trip, they traveled to Rajasthan and moved on camels through the hot desert. They collected different kinds of cactus plants from this trip. Finally, they went on a trip to Puri and visited to see the beaches dotted with kashuri trees. While recollecting all the fun that they had on this trip, a thought struck them. All these places were so different from one another. Some were cold, some very hot and dry, and some places so humid, and yet all them had many organism, living creatures of various kind. They tried to think of a place on earth where there may not be any living creature. Bojo thought of place near his home inside the house. He tried cupboard. He had a thought that there may not be any living organism here, but he found one tiny spider in the cupboard. Outside the home, too, there did not seem to be any place he could think of that did not have living creatures. Of some kind or others, Paheli started thinking and reading about far away place. She read that people have even found tiny living organisms in the opening volcanoes. Search of living organism and the surrounding where the live. Another thought that cupboard to Paheli and Buju was about a kind of living organism that were present in different locations that they had visited. The desert had camels, the mountains had caught and yak. Puri had some other creatures, crabs on the beach, and such a variety of fish being caught by the fishermen at the sea. And then there did seem to be some creature like ants that were present in all these different locations. The kind of plants found in each of these regions were so different from the plants of the other regions. What about the surroundings? In these different regions, were they the same? Activities 1. Let us start with a forest. Think of all the plants, animals, and objects that can be found there. List them in column 1. In table 6.1, list things, animals, and plants found in the other regions that are also shown in the tables. You can collect examples scattered through this chapter to fill table 6.1. Discuss also with your friends and parents and teachers to find more. Consult many interesting books in libraries that talk of animals, plant and minerals of different regions. Try and include many plants, animals, and objects, big and small, in each of columns. In this table, what kind of object will we find that may not be animals or plant? Perhaps parts of the plant like dried leaves or parts animals like bones. We may also find different kinds of soil and pebbles. Water in the oceans may have salt dissolved in the discussion chapter. There could be many more objects as we go through the chapter. Keep adding more example to table 6.1b. We'll discuss the table as we travel through the many interesting places, habitat and adaptations. What do you find from the plants and animal listed in activity 1? Did you find a large variety in them? Look at what you have entered in the column for the desert and the column for sea in table 6.1. Did you list very different kind of organism in these two columns? What are the surroundings like in these two regions? In the sea, plants and animals are surrounded by saline, salty water. Most of them use the air dissolved in water. There is very little water available in the desert. It is a very hot in the daytime and very cold at night in the desert. Animals and plants of the desert live on the desert soil and breathe air from the surroundings. The sea and the desert are very different surrounding, and we find very different kind of plants and animals in these two regions. Is not it? Let us look at two very different kind of organism from the desert and sea. A camels and fish. The body structures of camel helps it to survive in desert conditions. Camels have long legs which help to keep their bodies away from the heat of sand. They excrete a small amount of urine. Their ducts is dry and they do not sweat since camels lose very little water from their bodies. They can live for many days without water. Let us look at different kinds of fish. Some of these are shown in figure 6.3. There are so many kinds of fish, but do you see that they all have something common about their shapes? All the ones shown here have the streamlined shape. There was discussed in chapter 5. This shape helps them move inside water. Fish have slippery scales on their bodies. These scales protect the fish and also help in easy movement. Throughout the waters, we discuss in chapter 5 that fish have flat fins and tails that help them to change direction and keeps their body balanced in water. Gas present in the fish help them to use oxygen dissolved in water. We see that the features of fish help to live inside water, and the features of camel help it to survive in a desert. In addition, we have taken only two examples from a very wide variety of animals and plants that live on the earth. In all this variety of organisms, we will find that have certain features that helps them live in the surroundings in which they are normally found. The presence of specific feature of certain habitat which enable an organism to live naturally in place is called adaptation. Adaptations of organisms differ depending on their place of dwelling. That is why fish cannot live out of waters and camel cannot live in sea. The place where organisms live is called habitat. Habitat means a dwelling place, a home. The habitat provides food, water, air, shelter, and other needs to organisms. Several kinds of plants and animals live in the same habitat. The plants and animals that live on land are said to live in terrestrial habitat. Some examples of terrestrial habitat are forest, grassland, desert, coastal and mountain regions. On the other hand, the habitat of plants and tent. These are some changes that can happen in organism over a short period of time to help them adjust to some changes in their surroundings. For instance, if we live in the plains and suddenly go to the high mountains regions, we may experience difficulties in breathing and doing physical exercise for some days. We need to breathe faster when we are on high mountains. After some days, our body adjusts to the changes conditions on the high mountain. Such a small changes that takes place in the body of single organisms over short period to overcome small problems due to changes in the surroundings are called the acclimations. These changes are different from the adaptations that take place over thousands of years. Animals that lives in water are called aquatic habitat. Lakes, rivers, and oceans are some example of aquatic habitat. There are large variations among terrestrial habitats like forest and grassland, desert, coastals, coastal, coastal, and mountains regions located in different parts of the world. The organism, both plants and animals living in habitat, are its biotic component. The non-living things such as the rocks, soil, airs, and water in the habitat constitute its abiotic component are sunlight and heat, biotic and or embiotic component. We know that some plant grow from seedless. Let us look at some embiotic factor and their effect on seed as they grow into young plants. Activity 2. Recall activity 7 chapter 4. We made sprout from gram and maize seed. When the seed turned into sprout, it is said to have the germinated. This is the beginning of life of new plant. Collect some dry mung seed, keep 20-30 seed aside and soak the rest in water for day. Divide the socket seed into four parts. Keep one part completely submerged in water for 3 to 4 days. Do not disturb the dry seed and those submerged in water. Keep one part of soaked seed in a sunny room and another in a completely dark region like a cupboard that does not allow any light to come in. Keep the last part in very cold surrounding, say in a refrigerators or with ice around them. Rinse them and replace the water every day. What do you notice after a few days? Do the seed in all the five conditions germinate uniformly? Do you find shower or no or germinate in any of these? Do you realize that embiotic factor like air, water, light, and heat are important for growth of plant. In fact, embiotic factors are important for all living organisms. We find that organisms exist in very cold as well as very hot climate. Is not it? How do they manage to survive? Adaptation is the method by which organisms get well adjust to the climate adaptation does not take place in a short time because the embiotic factor of a region also changes very slow. Those organisms which cannot adapt to these changes die and only the adapt ones survive. Organisms adapt to different embiotic factor in different ways. This results in a wide variety of organisms in different habitat. Let us look at some habitat understood the embiotic factor and the adaptations of animals in this habitat. Desert animals in burrows. Some terrestrial habitat desert. We discussed the embiotic factor of desert and the adaptation in camels. What about other animals and plants that are found in desert? Do they have the same kind of adaptations? There are desert animals like rat and snake which do not have long legs that a camel has to stay away from the intense heat during the day. They stay in burrows deep in the sand. These animals come out only during during the night when it is cooler. Find 6 point and some show the typical plant that grow in desert. How are these adapted to the desert? Bring Bring a potted cactus and leafy plant to the classroom. Tie a polythene bag to some parts of the two plants as was done for activity 4 in chapter 4 where we study transpirations in plant. Leave the potted plant in the sun and observe after few hours. What do you see? Do you notice any difference in the amount of water collect in the two polythene bags? Desert plant lose very little water through the transpirations. The leaves in desert plant are either absent, very small, or they are in the form of spiny. That helps in reducing loss of water from the leaves. Through the transpiration, the leaf-like structure you see in a cactus is in fact its stem. Photosynthesis in this plant is usually carried out by stem. Stem is also covered with a thick waxy layer which help to retain water in the tissues of cacti. Most desert plants have roots that go very deep into the soil for absorbing water. Mountain regions. These habitats are normally very cold and windy. In some areas, snowfall may take place in winter. There is large variety of plants and animals living in the mountain regions. Have you seen the kind of trees shown in figure 6.1? No, also present on mountain, they have different kind of adaptations survive on the mountains. Animals living in the mountain regions are also adapted to the conditions. There they have thick skin or fur to protect them from cold. For example, yak have long hair to keep them warm. Snow leopard has thick fur on its body. No. If you in a mountain regions or have visited one, you may have seen a large numbers of such trees, but have you are noticed such trees naturally growing in other region? How are these trees adapted to the condition prevailing in their habitat? These trees are normally cone shaped and have sloping branches. The leaves of some of these trees are needle like. This helps the rainwater and snow to slide off easily. There could be trees with shapes very different from these that are including feet and toes. These protect its feet from the cold when it walks on the snow. The mountain goat has strong hooves for running up the rocky slopes of the mountain. As we go up in the mountain region, the surrounding changes and we see different kind of adaptations at different heights. Grassland. A lion lives in a forest on a grassland and is a strong animal that can hunt and kill animal like deer. It is a light brown in color. Look at the pictures of a lion and that of deer. How are they eyes placed in the face for these two animals? How are they in the front of on this side of face? Lions have long claws in their front legs that can be withdrawn inside the toes. Do the feature of lion help in it any way too? Way too. Survive. It is light brown color helps it to hide in dry grassland when it hunts for prey animal to eat. The eyes in front of the face allow it to have a correct ideas about the location of its prey. A deer is another animal that lives in forest and grassland. It has strong teeth for chewing hard plant stems on the forest. A deer need to now plants the presence of predate animals like lion that make it their prey in order to run away from them and not become their prey. It has long ear to hear movement of predators. The eyes on the side of its head allow it to look in all directions for dangers. The speed of deer help them to run away from the predators. There are many other features of lion, a deer, or other animals and plant that help them to survive in their habitat. Some aquatic habitation, some aquatic habitat. Oceans. We already discussed how fish are adapt to life in the sea. Many other sea animals have streamlined bodies to help them move easily in water. There are some sea animals like squids and octopods which do not have these streamlined shape. They stay there in the oceans near the seamed and catch and prey that moves towards them. However, when they move in water, they make their body shape streamline. These animals have gills to help them use the oxygen dissolved in water. There are some sea animals like dolphin and whales that do not have gills. They breathe in through the nostril or blowholes that are located on the upper parts of their heads. This allows them to breathe in air. When they swim near the surface of water, they can stay inside the waters for a long time without breathing. They come out to the surface from time to time to breathe in air. Did you ever see these interesting activities of dolphin in television's program or films or oceans life? Ponds and lake. Have you seen plant growing in ponds, lakes, river, and even some drains? Go on field trip to nearby ponds, if possibly, and try to observe the kind of plants that are seen there. Observe the leaves, stem, and roots of these plants. Some of these plants have their roots fixed in the soil below the water. In the terrestrial plant, root normally play a very important role in the absorption of nutrition and water from the soil. However, in aquatic plants, roots are much reduced in size, and their main function is to hold the plant in place. The stem of these plants are long, hollow, and light. The stem grow up to the surface of water, while the leaves and flowers float on their surface of water. Some aquatic plants are submerged in water. All parts of such plant are underwater. Some of these plants have narrow and thin ribbon-like leaves. These can bend in the flowering water. In some submerged plant, leaves are often highly divided through which the water can easily flow without damaging them. Frogs usually live in pond. Frogs can stay both inside the water as well as move on land. They have strong back legs that help them in the helping and the catching their prey. They have the webbed for feet which help them swim in the water. We have discussed only a few common animals and plants compared to the wide variety that lives in different habitats. You may have also noticed the very wide variety in plants around you. When you prepared a herbarium as part of the suggested activity in chapter 4, imagine the kind of variety that you could see in a herbarium of leaves of plant from all regions of the earth. Characteristic organism. We went on journey through the different habitat and discussed many plant and animals in activity 1. We listed object, plant, animals found in different surroundings. Suppose we stop a while and thinking which example in our list are living. Let us think of example from a forest. These trees, creepers, small birds, and big animals, birds, snake, insect, rock, soil, water, air, dry leaves, dead animals, mushroom, and mosses may be only some of the objects that are present in the forest. Which of these are living?